Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's 9 a.m. on August 4th, and today we're going to be discussing designing and using normalization rules in Alma. This is part of our Knowledge Days webinar series. This is also part one of a two-part series specifically on normalization rules. Today, as stated, we'll be discussing normalization rules in Alma. And tomorrow, our colleague Moran Vardi will be discussing Primo VE normalization rules. And the invitation for both of these was sent together to the Alma list. If you go through the archives of the Alma list, you'll see both invitations there, all in one mail. Feel free along the way today to stop me and either begin talking. Everybody now is muted. You can unmute yourself and start talking. Or if you'd like, you can send in a chat. I'll be looking at the chats periodically. So first of all, the information that we're reviewing today is available on our Knowledge Center. For those of you who are on the call now, I'm going to send you the link right now. There's this one here, Jump to the Normalization Rules webinar, August 4th, 2020. I'm under Home, Alma, Training, Extended Training, Presentations and Documents, and there's a whole page here just about rules, indication rules, merge rules, and normalization rules, brief level rules, and everything we're discussing today is here under Normalization Rules webinar, August 4th, 2020. You've got a link to it on the top of the page, and I'm sending that out right now to everybody. Okay, and as you see, my colleague Tali has already sent a link to the 2020 Knowledge Days, which we stated this is all part of. So, first, we're going to generally discuss normalization rules. What are they? What can they do? How do they get created? How can we test them? And then we'll actually do some real examples. And among those real examples, we're going to take questions which came in. One about changing the invalid language codes in the 008 and the 041. Another one about adding an 856 field with a link to the Primo, to the record in Primo. That's for institutions who are publishing records to an external catalog and want in that external catalog a link directly to the record in Primo. And then we've got one about running a normalization rule on a set of holdings records, not the bibliographic records, the holdings records. So before we even start looking at this general overview of introduction to designing normalization rules, I want to point out here this normalization rule examples, because one option is to start discussing what does each syntax do inside a normalization rule. And I think from experience, the best way is to just look at examples. And this page here gives examples of every existing syntax, copy field, copy subfield, copy control field, replace contents, all of the different ones are in here. It describes what it does, and then it gives an example. So in the vast majority of cases, when somebody is looking to write a normalization rule, usually there's something close enough here that it's just a matter of changing the name of the field or changing the contents that needs to be replaced. This is a very important page. It's a full list of, I don't know how many, but very many normalization rule examples. But right now, we'll start looking at the very general PowerPoint, and then we're going to jump right in. Now, one of the issues we always have on sessions like this is we want to try to make it appropriate for all levels. So we're going to start very, very basic, and then we're going to go a little more in depth. So what is a normalization rule? What does it do? So it's designed to change bibliographic or holdings records at various stages. And when we say at various stages, it means we can change the record in the database itself, the record that's actually stored in the repository, or we can do it while importing or while exporting. So it might be, for example, we're going to look at what I mentioned of adding an 856 field with a link to the record in Primo. That's something we don't want to save in the repository. We want it only during export. Or we might get a file from a vendor with a 938 field that we don't want in our repository. So we might have a normalization rule which deletes the 938 field. So that would be while it's coming in. So it can be during import, during export, or in the catalog. Okay, and what can they do? We can add fields, delete fields, change the text, change the field tags, and change the indicators. We can also reorder the subfields. There's a few more. These are the basics of what we can do. And anytime we write a rule, we can do it by conditions and say if whatever exists or whatever does not exist, or position whatever of whatever control field is or is not a certain value, then do it or then don't do it. So it's on conditions. It doesn't have to be on conditions because we can already build a set if we want of all of the records which we want to be changed, and then we can just run the normalization rule with no conditions. And here we mention the other documents which I pointed out. This, for example, is the list of all of the normalization rules which we saw a moment ago. So creating a normalization rule, and with that, let's jump right in. So there's 3 different ways to create a normalization rule. The first way is to do file, new. Everybody sees my screen? Yes, okay. So the first way is just to do, I'm in the metadata editor, file, new, normalization rules. And give it a name. And if it's shared, that means everybody can see it. If it's private, only the user who's logged in can see it. And if it's enabled, it can be used. It may be that the institution or the person is in the middle of creating a normalization rule. It's not yet ready to be used. The person is still editing it, so he doesn't want it enabled, or she doesn't want it enabled until it's actually ready. So he or she might not want to have it enabled. And then here we can start putting in the syntax. And like we saw a moment ago, I can just come here and take something like this and create a normalization rule. I just copied it and I put it right in. And if I save this, I'll have a normalization rule. That's option 1 for creating a normalization rule. Option 2 for creating a normalization rule is to duplicate an existing one. For example, here I'm in the left pane of the metadata editor. I've got a section on rules. These are all of the shared rules in my institution. And I can take any of these and duplicate it. For example, let's say I want to change text apple to orange in a certain field. So I can find one here that changes text something to something. This replaces a backslash. This replaces parentheses. I can take one of these and just duplicate it and change my text to be whatever I want. If I want to add a certain field, I can take one here that adds a field and just change whatever field is being added. This one deletes certain fields with a certain condition. So I'll take this one. This one replaces text USA with United States of America. I'll duplicate it. And I can change this to whatever I want. I'll call this, instead of replacing this text with whatever, replace elevator with lift. Two different ways to say elevator. Okay. So now I've created a new one in a moment. Just put in the description here as well. save. I now see what happened there. This one, we're already getting into something. At one time in the history of normalization rules, we could put a $$ sign in there. We can no longer do that. So I'm just going to edit that existing one. Now I can duplicate it. Okay, we'll talk about that later on. So I'm just duplicating it, giving it a new name, and save. So now I have a new rule. So the first way was file, new normalization rules. The second way, we came and we duplicated an existing one. And the third way is to copy one from the community. Any user can contribute a normalization rule to the community. And that way, the entire Alma community, 1,500 live Alma institutions, can contribute for the benefit of the other institutions. And for example, here I go into community, I can see all of the different rules and who created them. And for example, I can take from University of Macau. So University of Macau added one here about changing the second indicator. I can take a look at it first like this, and then if I want, I can copy it. So these are all of the rules. Athens Technological College contributed something. Texas Women's University ebook. Let's see what that is. View. It adds a 901 field. I can take this one and, for example, copy. I'm choosing copy, and that copies it to my institution, and I can call it whatever I want. I'm leaving it with the same name, and save. Now that is in my institution under the shared. So I've copied that to my own institution. Okay. So that's the three ways of creating a normalization. Someone says that, oh, it's the same person. Do people hear me okay? Just say, because someone said they can't get any sound. Other people hear me all right? Just send in, yes, we hear you. No, we don't hear you. Okay, everybody else hears me. Okay. Sorry to the person who didn't hear me, but it seems to be on that end. All right, so that's creating the rule. Now, let's see how we can test a rule and put the rule into a process. Anytime we have a rule, when we want to actually run it, for example, during import or during export, we need to put it into a normalization process. Okay, so this is all of the ways to create it. We already did that. Okay, so now let's say we have a rule and we want to test it. This is a nice rule here. Fix the 245 second indicator. Let's take that one there and let's show how we can create it and then test it out. So let's say here, I'm back in Alma. I want to look for that rule. Here's the one I just copied, by the way, from Texas Women's. I'm going to remove that one. So if I have a rule here already about changing the 245 second indicator, let me look for it here. So I'm going to write 245, and that will give me all rules which have 245 in it. Here's one that copies the 245 subfield C. Here's one that fixes the punctuation. And here's one that fixes the 245 second indicator. So what does it do? We're not going to discuss the entire every possible syntax. Like I said, you can take the examples from here and see what everything does. There's also working with normalization rules in the Alma Online Help, working with normalization rules Alma, and this will also list all of the syntax. But again, I highly recommend, instead of looking here at all of the syntax, I highly recommend just go right to the examples. look for something similar to what you want to do and copy it. Okay, so now I've got a rule here which checks and updates the 245 second indicator. What does it do in general? It gets the language of the record by getting the position 35 to 37 of the 008. This means if position 35 for 3 characters is English, is ing, if it's French, if it's Spanish, if it's German, if it's Italian, etc. And then it says, according to that language, what to make the second indicator. So this means if my 245 starts with LA space something, make my second indicator 3 because it's a non-filing indicator and la at the beginning is like the, and therefore the browse, the non-filing indicators should go 3 positions. Easiest to look at in English, so if it starts with THE, it's going to make it 4. Now, if we want to test this rule, we can come and take any record. Let's come and take any record. Open it up in the metadata editor and start playing. Okay, Who Owns the Future by Jerome Lanier. So now we want to test out that rule. We want to see how does that rule, does it really work? So I get one record open in the metadata editor, switch to split editor mode, and in the right pane, I put the normalization rule. So I'm going to the rules now. I focused first on the right pane of the metadata editor, going to the rules, going to the normalization rules, and now I can get that specific rule that we want to check. And that's something about the 245. I'll do another search here, fix to 245, and I'm going to do edit. So now I have the rule on the right, the text on the left, and I want to make sure this works. So let's say I make this, I don't even have to save the record now. I'll change this to the owns the future. So it's 24510. And we see here that my record is English. So if I test this rule, it should change that 0 to a 4. I say preview. And it did. It changed it to a 4. You see on the left I have a 0 here. And on the right, it changed it to a 4. And if I really want to make sure it works, I can change this, for example, to French. And now it should not change it because it says here when it's ing and it starts with the. But for French, there is no change for the. This is the French. So if I preview it now, it does not change it. So I can ascertain so far that it works. I'll do one more little test. What if it starts with la? If it starts with la, it should change to 3. So if I were to say here, la owns, and I'm still in French on the top, preview, it changed it to 3. So that's how we can test a normalization rule. We open a record in the metadata editor. In the right pane, we open the rule, and we can play around that way. And then I can also keep editing here and try it again. So I know it will do exactly what I want it to do. So now let's say I want to work on, first of all, I'm going to release this record without changing anything. Release. Let's say now I want to run this on a set of records. So anytime we run a normalization rule on a set of records, we need to make a normalization process. Anytime we run it, in any manner, we need a normalization process. And the normalization process can include one or more normalization rules. Let's see what we mean here. So I have, by chance, 3 examples of something I want to change. And I already did this in advance. I got a public note called Examples for Session. Okay, what do we have here? Let's just look at these 3 records. The first one is in German. It starts with Das. It should have a second indicator with 4. There's something wrong with the record. That normalization rule can fix it. Then I've got one here in English, and it has a 3 instead of a 4, and it begins with the. Then I've got another one, excuse me, in French, starting with an L apostrophe, which should have, I believe, 3 or 2. It shouldn't be 1, that's for sure. Okay, so if I want to run on this set, first of all, I'm going to save these 3 as a set, and I'll call this Morning Session August 4th. Okay, because we're also going to have a session at 5 o'clock local time, PM. All right. Now, if I want to run that rule on that set, then I need to make a normalization process. And to make a normalization process, we first go to configuration. Now, I'm in the new user interface. So on the bottom left, I'm going to click the configuration icon and open the configuration. And it's going to be under resources. And now to metadata configuration. So we did configuration, resources, metadata configuration, and that's so we can add a normalization process. And this process deals with bibliographic records. So I click Mark 21 bibliographic and go to the normalization process tab. And we're going to add a process. Okay, we'll call this Morning Session Fix 245 Second Indicator. Okay. And I'll give it the same description. Next. Now we're going to add a task. Anytime we want to use a normalization rule, then we need to add a task, which is Mark Drool Normalization, the second one here. And these are all explained in the online help, what they all do. It's more or less pretty clear from the name. For example, clear empty fields gets rid of any field that's empty. Resequence puts the fields in numerical order by groups. Sort subfields. In any case, so we're doing Mark Drool normalization because we want to add now that normalization rule, which we saw a moment ago. And to add the normalization rule to the process, we need a task of Mark Drool normalization. So I'll add and close, and now click Next. Now for that, this is the Mark Drool normalization. Now we'll choose that normalization rule, which is called EXL Fix 245 Second Indicator. So now I have a process called EXL Fix the 245 Second, called Morning Session. Here it is. Now all of these processes also appear in the metadata editor. What do I mean? If we go back to the metadata editor, and we have any record open, which by chance I do not have any record open, so I'll grab a record. Okay. If I want to run on this, I'll make this the lean out. If I want to run a process on this, I can do edit, enhance the record. Again, edit, enhance the record. And these are all of the processes. So one of them here is the morning session. I'll choose that one, okay. And you see it changed the indicator. But that's just for testing it or doing one at a time. Let me release this without saving. Okay. But now we want to run it on that set. Remember, we made a set, admin, manage sets. We made a set with the word morning in it. Oh, look at all the morning sessions I got. Session at Eluna morning, regular morning, morning has 913, and morning session August 4th. So this is the set that we want to run that normalization process on the whole set. And that's what we're going to do right now. And this is all explained in this PowerPoint, but we're just doing it live. But you can do it on your own here as well. Here it is, doing the batch update. In fact, this is what we're doing right now, this part here. Okay, let's continue. So we'll go run a job, admin, run a job. Now, we could go directly look for the process which we made called fixed second indicator or whatever it was called, or we can filter here by the type Mark 21 bib normalization. And this gives us all of these normalization rules. And here's our fixed 245 second indicator. So we can choose this now and run this on the set. And we can do it with any of these. These are all of the processes which we've made. Also here, if I have one called morning, I've got this one. This is the one we just made, yet let's use this one. Morning, the other one already existed. This is the one we just made. Next. Now we're prompted to choose the set. So the set I also called something morning. And here's the one morning, August 4th. So first we chose the process that we made just a few moments ago. Now we're choosing the set that we made a few moments ago. It tells us it's going to run this fixed 245 second indicator. That's the normalization rule. It's going to run that one because that's the one we chose inside the process. Next. And that's going to run. So I will submit and confirm. And she's running. So that will now run on those three records in the set. It will go according to the rule and look at the 008, see what language it is, see what the 245 starts with, and if necessary, change the second indicator. Let's do a refresh here. It's already done. Here's the history. Let's take a look. Report. No records were skipped. No records have extensions. The reason a record could possibly be skipped is if it's a community zone record, because that would mean where you can't go change it with a job. And an exception would be an invalid record, which for whatever reason we won't get into now, is a non-valid record, for example, doesn't have a 245. Well, let's go take a look at our records and see what happens. We'll see what happened. So we'll go to the sets, take a look at the set. You'll have to excuse me, those of you who it's your first time, might not know that my spelling is very bad. Okay, so let's see what happened here. This one here had the wrong indicators. Now it's got a 4. Great. Next, this one here had the wrong indicator. Now it's got a 4. And then we had the Italian one. Was it Italian or French? In any case, it's now got a 2. Previously, it didn't have a 2. I believe it had a 1. And if we go in and edit, we see that it was modified by system. This is a server, an environment where the server is in Amsterdam, 8:29 at today. It was modified by the system today, just 2 minutes ago when the job ran, and it updated that. If I were to do tools view versions, by the way, and view a previous version, so I can see here the 2:45 second indicator is 1, and here the 2:45 second indicator is 2. Okay, I'm going to stop now. We're exactly halfway through. I'm going to see if there's any questions or comments. And if not, I will continue as planned. If there are questions or comments, then I will take the questions or comments. Any questions or comments from anybody? No questions or comments from anybody. Okay. Everybody still hear me all right? 75 people on today. That's quite large for these morning sessions. Usually the morning ones is a little low. Let's see if Boaz is with us this morning. I don't think Boaz from Haifa University has joined us today. Someone asked, how did you add 3 records to set? Okay, I did a search. If I go, I did a search to get my 3 records in there. I searched for notes and example for session. I found 3 records and I did save query. That's how I got a set of 3 records. Someone asks, there's no way to know who performed it when it is done via a bulk job? Well, there is. If I go look at a record, like one of these records here that were changed, inside here, I only see that it was updated by system. And I don't know who or what did it, modified by system. However, let me go release all records. Yes, I do see under the jobs, history, edit report. No, I don't see. Nope, I don't see the actual user who sent the job back. Let me just confirm that. I see that it was a job. Let me just confirm. Oh, operator. Yes, yes. I thought the operator was there. And done. So within the jobs, I can see who ran it. That's me. I'm logged in as Hannah Wagner. You can see here. So you can see who ran the job. But inside the record, you see that it was system, which is true. It was the system that changed it. But here, you know who ran each job. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, then we'll go on. Oh, someone else. Does one need to be an admin to create a normalization process? No. The roles, there was really only so much I could cover in here. But the roles you need to have to work with normalization rules, right here, catalog administrator, catalog manager, and cataloger. You don't need to, I don't know what you mean by an admin, if you mean a catalog administrator, but you can also be a catalog manager. Okay, let's go on. So, let's say now, I'm a Primo VE user, a Primo VE institution, which by the way, the majority are. And if I go search for anything here, lean out. So here I can see the link to this record by doing display and discovery. And it's going to bring me that record with the MMS ID. And this is just one way of doing it. So now I have a syntax here of getting that record. If I have a different record here, that was lean out, maybe I have lean in, which I do. And I was to search for lean in here. By MMSID in the library catalog. So this is my syntax. So anytime I want to be able to search a record by Primo V, I get a syntax like this. Let me go new. A syntax like this, which means I have this line here, then I have the MMSID, then I have that. So if I want to make a string for accessing Primo, then all I need to do is get the MMSID, prefix it with this, and suffix it with this, because it's always the same. Each institution will have their own. This is the name of mine. Each institution will have their own VID also, their view, but the syntax is always going to be the same. So that's what we're going to build now. By the way, I just want to point out here, the person who asked a question about roles, someone else clarified it. Thank you. I'll put that here so everyone can see it. The person who asked about roles was asking about normalization processes. And for that, you do need access to the configuration menu. So thank you for pointing that out to the participant who pointed it out. Okay, so let's continue. So let's see how this can be done. And then we want to use this while publishing to an external catalog. This is something really done. All over the world, there are national catalogs. People publish to a national catalog. And in that national catalog, instead of giving all of the information about what's the library, what's the location, what's the poll number, is it on loan, etc., you can give a link, view in native catalog, for example, view in Primo, or view in library catalog, and then automatically have the link. Because if we have this link here, I'll put it back into one row, and if this were to be, for example, a hyperlink in an 856 field, then this could be pasted, this could be clicked, and from any catalog, the end user would arrive to the record in the library catalog. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to come into my normalization rules, which we already saw we do via the metadata editor. So I'll go to Resources, Open Metadata Editor. And by the way, if we didn't know what the syntax was, we could come here to Alma Normalization Rule Examples, create a link to Primo by contents of the MMSID. So it's all here. Let's in fact make it from scratch. I have one already ready, but let's make it from scratch and let's describe what it's doing. So we'll say File, New, Normalization Rule. I'll call this Morning Primo Link. We'll make this shared and we'll make it enabled. And all I have to do is paste it in. Now, there's a warning here at the beginning of this page that sometimes When you copy and paste, depending on your windows, sometimes the quotation marks don't transfer properly, and then it causes errors. So if you get an error message when you save it, it's probably because something happened with the copy and paste of the quotation marks. Just something to watch out for. So what's going on here? And I'm going to make this, thought I could make my browser a little, oh, there we go. So I made the browser, significantly bigger, just so I can explain this more easily to everybody. What are we doing here? So priority, sometimes we want a rule to happen within a certain order. The higher priority happens first. For example, sometimes we might add a field or delete fields, and we might be deleting all the 9XX fields, but adding a 959 field. So we don't want to add the 959 first and then delete all the 900s, because we'll delete what we added. So we might want to first delete them all, then add our own. So priority, the higher the priority, the earlier it happens. Priority 10 occurs before priority 9. So first of all, we're making two temporary fields here with the prefix and the suffix. This is the prefix, and this is the suffix. Instead of just, I like to make the rules, even if it's a lot of steps, go step by step, because then if something doesn't work, you know exactly where to check it. I could just get the MMS ID there, do prefix, suffix, and be done, but you'll see what the logic is here. So first, we're making a field called YLK with a 9, first indicator 0, second indicator, and then with a 9, first indicator 1, second indicator. This will be the prefix, this will be the suffix. Then we add an 856 field with a subfield Z that says link to Primo. Subfield Z in an 856 is the public note. Let's even say, instead of link to Primo, link to, let's leave it link to Primo. Okay. Now we're going to add the system number. Now the records have a system number in the 001. A way to add a system number somewhere is to do this add system number, the name of the field, name of the subfield from 001, and you can prefix it with another field. And if you don't want to prefix it with anything, you can just put something which doesn't exist, like nothing. So we're adding system number to 859 subfield U. Then we're saying prefix that 859 subfield U, which now has the MMS ID. Prefix it with the YLK90, suffix it with the YLK91. Why prefix and suffix it with that? Because here, that's when we put the prefix and the suffix earlier. And then, sorry, I gotta scroll down slowly. I'm on priority 7 now. Then we're getting the subfield Z linked to Primo there. We're adding that field if it's not already there, just to make sure, even though we already put it in there earlier. Then we're changing this 859. We're using a temporary field here, this 859, because we don't want to work directly on an 856, because I might have several 856s in my record, and I don't want to touch any of those others. So I'm using a temporary field in 859. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to copy the 859 to an 856. So here I'm just changing the indicators. And then here I copy that 859 to an 856. That's just a safety precaution. Instead of touching any of the existing 856s by accident, I'm working on a completely different field, and then I copy it over to 856 when I'm done. Then we get rid of all these temporary fields, which was an 859 and a YLK. The whole syntax is less important now than the process of how to use it. We're focusing on the process of how to use it. So first of all, let's test it and make sure it really works. I'll save it first of all. So we have one here called Morning Primo Link. And let's test this on one of our records. Okay, workplace diversity. Let's just take a look at this. Okay. So we'll take this record and we want to test it. We already saw how to test it. We go to split editor mode, then to the rules, and I'll look for that rule called Morning Primo Link. Okay, there she is, and edit. So if I say preview, it created an 856 with this subfield U. I'll grab the first H there. Okay, so let me test this and make sure this will really link to workplace diversity. So I'll just paste that into a browser. And there it is. Great. So now we want to do that on a set of records that are being published. So let's first of all make a set of records. I'll release all these records. Okay. "26 records, that's a nice amount. Save query, and I'll call this Morning Session Diversity. Now we want to set up a publishing profile, which will use a normalization process. So we need to make a normalization process first of all. We remember how to make a process: configuration, resources, Mark 21 bibliographic. Mark 21 bibliographic, and add process. So this, we'll give this the same name as we gave the normalization rule, which will be Morning Link Primo, something like that. We'll just always look for the word morning and we'll find ours. Next. Now we'll add a task here. We said anytime we want to add a normalization rule to a normalization process, we need the marked rule normalization task. So we've added that. And now we'll add the actual rule. Next. And it was something with the word morning. There we go, Morning Primo Link. Save. So now we've got the process. Now let's make the publishing profile, which is going to activate this normalization process, which is going to add the 856 field to every record when it gets published. Okay. So first we're going to go to the publishing profiles. Resources, publishing profiles. And we'll add a general profile. And I'll call this Morning Publish with Primo Link. And I won't schedule it. We'll select a set. So we made a set a moment ago called Morning Diversity or something. There it is. And we'll publish on the bibliographic level. We'll publish to Mark 21 bibliographic format. We'll publish it to an FTP server, to this one here, to subdirectory morning session. And we'll do it to Mark XML. Or let's actually do it to Mark Binary, and then we'll open it up in a Mark editor. File name prefix, morning. Okay. So far we haven't seen the process yet. We didn't put in the process. We're just saying what we want to publish. Next. Now we'll choose the normalization process, which we just made a moment ago. Morning link Primo. So that's going to add the link to Primo with the normalization rule that we put inside the normalization process. Now the normalization process is in the publishing profile. And that should do it for our purposes. Save. Now I'll run that. So that was called something morning. Run. So the publishing job is running now. Let's go take a look at the result. I'll just have to pop onto my FTP server, which will take no time flat. And I'll go to the directory here. Here it is, morning session, 9:52 local time. Wow, 9:52. We're almost done with this session. And here's the record that was, the file that was printed right now. And let me put that onto my computer here. And let's take a look at it. So let that come, here it is. And extract here. Oh, I think I gotta say .tar.gz. I don't even remember. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. Great. So this is the file, and we see it added to all of these records this 856 field. For example, if I go look now in Alma at rediscovering the Dutch on culture and society in the Netherlands, if I look at this record now in Alma, we'll get rid of the $B, home, and the A. This record here does not have an 856 field in it. We added that 856 field via the normalization process in the publishing profile, which ran during the publishing. So now if we go and we look at that 856 field here, I'm just opening the file now in Mark Edit, and I take this, which will appear in the catalog that somebody's using, and I paste this into my browser. I know I got to add HTTPS at the beginning, fine. And someone puts this in their browser. I got an extra H. HT. Okay. So it automatically brings up the record. So we've added the 856 to the records during the publishing. I'm going to stop for a moment. Let's see the questions or comments. Okay. Okay, someone says we have to make big detours to get results for copy control contents to a position X, Y, like copy control contents from 009 to 008. Are there plans to implement such an option? There's no known plans that I'm aware of for changing the copy control contents. Are there any other questions or comments? I just want to see here. Copy control contents here. We've got some examples here of the copy control contents. The 009, position 0 for that's getting the whole thing, yeah. Okay. And then replace the control contents. That's copy control field, replace control contents. You're talking about copy control contents. In any case, no known plans about copy control contents. Okay, any other questions or comments? I see we're at 9:57 here. I don't want to start a whole nother topic. It's a shame we only have an hour, but tomorrow is even 45 minutes as far as I know. So we've covered everything that we wanted to cover. You've got everything inside the presentation here. If there's no other questions or comments, then we'll stop here. We'll be sending out the recording of the session. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget tomorrow, primo normalization rules. Have a nice day.